So you've obviously all seen the title and thumbnail, and yeah, I might have had the most accurate published preseason prediction, like, out of anybody in the AFL media. So in this video, we're going to go over my prediction, how it rated against others, and I'll make sure to share the Squiggle link so you can compare yours against other AFL media personalities too. But my name's Woody, this is Wooden Spoon Data with the 18th best AFL content on YouTube, so let's get into it. In case it wasn't clear, I'm using Squiggle's rating system, which gave me an overall score of 79. There were only 9 people that Squiggle tracked this year that scored over 70, and these are their scores. Squiggle's measurement system starts by measuring absolute error, which is the total number of ladder positions your prediction was off by. My score was 36. The best number you can get is 0, meaning that your ladder prediction was exactly right. The worst number you can get is 162, meaning you predicted every team as far away from their final actual position as possible. The second measurement is mean squared error, which is similar to absolute error, but it's a bit more forgiving for smaller mistakes while punishing larger ones. In technical terms, it takes the difference, squares that number, does that for every team, and then finds the average. The best possible number is 0, the worst possible number is 108. I got 6.22. There's also RPS, or rank probability score, which is kind of just another way to view results, but with every team's final spot weighted to 100, I'm not sure how much it actually means. There's also bonus points for getting a team's position exactly right, picking the minor premier, the wooden spooner, the amount of top 8 and top 4 selections that you got correct too. So I'm not exactly sure how the final overall score is scaled, but anyway, I'm getting lost in math stuff and we'll come back to that at the end. Let's go over my predictions.
All right, I predict...
Starting with the bottom 4, in 18th, like almost everybody else, I had Richmond. Being one position away from their actual final finishing spot and no different from the vast majority of people, let's just move on. In 17th, I had the Bombers, which wasn't far from their actual final spot in 15th, and I know the Bombers were a bit of a polarising side going into the season, so I certainly wasn't alone in predicting them to go bottom 4, but I can see why many would have thought they went higher. I actually liked their starting 22 quite a bit, but I didn't think they were going to improve on their 11th place finish from last year, mostly because many of their most important players have a bit of an injury history, and I just wasn't convinced that was going to change. In 16th, I had the Roos, and I got that correct. And look, I think most people predicted them to finish around here. 4 of Squiggle's over 70s got this position correct. And look, you've probably started to notice one of my bigger misses as well, so we'll get straight on to the next one.
Pass. Next one.
I had Melbourne in 15th, which was another polarising team. In fact, from the other people that Squiggle rated over 70, only Nat Edwards actually got them correct, while Josh Gableach, I have no idea how to say his name, he thought they'd finish as high as 8th. So all in all, I'm pretty happy only being one spot off, but let's get on to one of my biggest mistakes.
You made a huge mistake.
In 14th, I had West Coast. So yeah, with hindsight, that doesn't look good, but hear me out. Since 2000 on average, about 2 teams stay in the bottom 4 each year, and if you're going to spend more than 1 year in the bottom 4, on average, it's 2.7 years. It's also particularly rare to be stuck in the bottom 4 for more than 3 years, as before this year, only 3 other teams had done so since the turn of the century. So with all that in mind, and considering West Coast have a bigger home ground advantage than the Roos, who are the worst bottom 4 streak since 2000, I went with them to be one of 2 teams to jump out of there. In 13th, I had my Saints. I said it'd be a hard year defensively for the Saints with the loss of Battle and Dougal Howard's injury early in the season all but sealed their fate. The Saints went from 76 points against to 90, letting in an extra 3 shots a game. This was their worst year they've had defensively since 2018, but that being said, for the Saints fans watching, I do think there's a return to mean next year. All in all, I was fairly happy to just be one spot off, but let's get on to 12th, where I picked Port, who was also just one spot off. I picked Port here because while I really like their mid group and even think Jordan Sweet's pretty underrated, in my opinion, outside of the mids, it drops off pretty quickly in terms of depth. I've also never thought transition years in coaching is a particularly good thing, so all in all, I'm just happy to be one spot off.
You are here, 11.
In 11th, I had the Dogs, and to be honest, they performed significantly better than I thought they would, and most of that came from the forward line. While I rated them as the 6th best forward group coming into the year, I thought that would only be if everybody was fully fit, and they lost Jamara and Waitman for the whole season and Darcy for a third of it. And despite all that, they scored more than every other side, averaging 108 points per match.
One for most points in a season.
However, as many have stated, those numbers were inflated against the lower teams as the Doggies went 2-9 against the rest of the top 9 sides. In 10th, I had Carlton, and I remember hearing some people rate the Blues as high as top 4. That was probably mostly from well-wishing fans, but I remember having very different thoughts. And while I did get one of the top 9 teams wrong, I didn't think they had effective enough small forwards to go with the top 9. And they were also probably missing a few things defensively to go with that group too. Getting to 9th spot, I had GWS, and this was a team I struggled to read going into the year. And while my prediction was technically as far away as the Eagles and outside the top 8, I don't feel like this is quite as big a miss, considering only 2 wins separate 9th to 4th in real life.
It's life.
In 8th spot, I had Fremantle. I thought they'd be in a similar spot to last year, needing to win the final match to get over the line, but looking back, it seems like their 1-point win over Collingwood at the MCG helped them avoid that fate. Coming in 7th for my second correct pick of the year, I had the Gold Coast Suns. So, when I was doing my team reviews at the start of the year, end of last, around that time, while I had the Suns as the second worst offensive group, with the addition of Rioli and Noble, I had them as the best defensive profile going into the season, with a top 8 mid and ruck group. So I figured their scoring would improve, getting the Suns their first finals appearance.
6th for me.
In 6th place, I had Geelong, which was probably one of my bigger misses for the season. While I did think the Cats would make the 8, I also thought Geelong was going to struggle more this year. With the loss of Hawkins, Tui, and to a lesser extent Rowan and Parfitt, I thought their depth would be tested and it might be too much for the replacements. I also wondered if Smith would be the player he was prior to his injury at the Dogs. Needless to say, everybody seems to have stood up and the Cats look ready for another flag tilt.
See, I overestimated you.
Getting to 5th place, I had the Sydney Swans, which is technically my worst prediction for the year. Sydney's year was probably done in round 12 when they were demolished at home by the Crows to the tune of 90 points. However, they did win 8 of their final 10 matches to finish the season with a positive record. I remember thinking this sort of season was possible. Similar to Port, I wondered if moving on a coach that had just taken their side to the final day in September was really a smart idea. Considering the average preseason selection amongst the rest of the Squiggle above 70s was 5.3, I think this was a reasonable guess.
Yeah, I guess it's not so bad.
In 4th, I again missed by 4 for the 4th and final time by selecting Hawthorn. Coming into the season, I think everybody had Hawthorn improving defensively with the additions of Battle and Barras, and while they did concede 3 points less per match, they also scored 2 points less too. Despite playing well, I think the Hawks would be disappointed with their latter result, and when looking at the rest of the over 70s group, I'm a little disappointed with how I did. Not only was their average 2.2 spots closer than me, but both Damien Barrett and Peter Ryan got it exactly right.
3rd place?
So, getting to 3rd spot, missing by 1, I had Collingwood. With their additions in the off-season, I think most had the Pies coming into the 8 this year, and while Houston might not have had the most impressive year, going into the season, I thought his addition was going to provide significant run from half-back, and looking at Perryman and Membry, I think they performed better than I expected. But the Pies would want to find their mid-season form pretty quick if they want to have success this year. Looking at the rest of the over 70s, Nat and Josh were the only ones to think the Pies would make the top 4, and with an average of 5.6 across the board, I'm pretty happy with my results here. In 2nd, I picked this year's bolter in the Adelaide Crows, and while I rated the Crows equal 8th defensively, equal 7th in the mids, and 13th for ruckman, I had the Crows as the best defensive side going into the year, and finishing 3rd with 99 points per match, I wasn't far off. Looking at the rest of the over 70s group, they had an average prediction of 10th, and only Michael and Nathan thought Adelaide would make the 8. No one else thought they'd make the top 4, let alone tip them for the flag.
My number 1 shorty, yo.
Which means in 1st, I selected Brisbane. After getting it done from 5th last year, despite losing Danaher, I thought the Lions were poised to go deep into September again, and with the additions of another Ashcroft, the experience of doing it already, and the subsequent breakout seasons from Morris, Bailey and McCluggage, Brisbane looks set to make that a reality. Looking at the rest of the over 70s from Squiggle, Sarah Ollie got the Lions correct, and while many were 2 spots off like myself putting Brisbane in 1st, only Josh Gablich went the other way, selecting the Lions outside the top 4.
So, how'd I do?
So after all that, let's take stock of how the over 70s compared in each Squiggle category. In terms of absolute error, as mentioned earlier, I got 36. Looking at the rest of the scores, we can see Michael was the next best with 40, and if we follow the list down, it stays pretty much the same as Squiggle's overall score until we see Nathan Schmook jump Josh Gablich and Peter Ryan. So why was that? Well, if we look at mean squared error, Nathan was the third best behind only myself and Michael Whiting. So how did that happen? Well, as we mentioned earlier, this equation is more forgiving of small errors while punishing larger ones. Nathan's biggest misses was Adelaide by 6 places in 7th, and then the Dogs and Swans by 5, helping reduce his MSE to 9.78. So clearly I lead those two categories, but what else can we check? Well, no one picked the minor premier or wooden spooner, but myself and 3 other people got 2 teams exactly right. However, in terms of teams off by 1 position, I got 7, meaning I came 3rd behind Bob Murphy with 8 and Max Lawton with 9. In terms of top 8 and top 4 predictions, Michael Whiting and Nathan Schmook equaled me with 7 out of the top 8 correct, with all of us selecting Sydney to be in the 8. However, no one else managed to get 3 out of the top 4 correct.
So, what do you think?
So, what do you think of my preseason prediction? I had a couple of people voted as average when I put a poll up on Instagram before all this Squiggle stuff. So yeah, I'd be keen to see if someone posted a better score than myself. In general, I'd love to see all of your preseason predictions, particularly the reasoning behind some of your bolder selections or, just what you've learnt over the year. But that about sums up this video. My name's Woody, this is Wooden Spoon Data with the 18th... Actually... I normally say the 18th best AFL content on YouTube because, being Wooden Spoon Data, we can't be the best. But I also did kind of just beat most of the AFL media, and Tassie will be coming in soon too, meaning if we wanted to continue the gag, we'd have to be the 19th best AFL content. So if you have any ideas for taglines, feel free to drop a comment. Anyway, if you like this video, like the video, click the subscribe button to be kept up to date with future videos. The notification bell notifies you. We also have channel memberships if you want to help the channel further, but even just clicking on one of the videos that YouTube thinks you might like would be awesome. Anyway, thanks again. Have a good day. Cheers.
It called a special summit with the smartest man in the world.
So you smart, huh?
I
I thought your head would be bigger. God damn. Could look like a peanut.